and you are at a special meeting of the 6:15, Monday, January 19th. And you are at a special meeting of the Parks and Recreation Committee. And I will read the public comment statement. City of Wausau recognizes the value of public comment on local issues and importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on city matters. Please identify yourself by name, state your address. Each statement made by the participant should be limited to 3 minutes. All comments will be directed to the chair, not to members, staff, or other participants. People addressing the council shall not disrupt the orderly course of business. The chair values civil discourse and may not interrupt, terminate, or prohibit public comment that do not adhere to these rules. Do we have any public comment tonight? Okay. If not, I will move to item number 2, and that is discussion and possible action. Discussion and possible action on requests for proposal for River Life concession stand proposals and lease conditions. I had brought this up to Jamie, and I had a discussion about about charging rent over the winter, and how that might what's the word I'm looking for? Distract people from not wanting to sign up for the RFPs, and it came to my attention that the previous occupant would have probably came back with a RFP if they did not choose to, if we did not have a rent for winter time. And it's my understanding that, I guess I'll let Jamie talk about what it costs to operate, what it costs to maintain this stand, but it sounds like the city has it set up to fail anyway. But with that, I'll turn. I guess my point being is, my colleagues on the city council can offer, millions of dollars to out of town developers and stuff, and millions of dollars for apartment buildings. We should be able to work with to make a decent RFP for a small business to succeed in our ice cream stand downtown. And so with that, I will turn it over to Jamie.
Thank you, Chair Larson. So this had brought up some questions, so that's why I wanted to have a discussion with you, and now that you've heard a few proposals the last meeting, and how you wanted to, if there's anything you had concerns with regarding the RFP, in order to, if there's any changes that the proposers need to make, or how to move forward here. But in my conversations with Chair Larson about the concession stand and about the cost, I pulled all of the utilities that we keep a spreadsheet of water, electric, and gas for the year, and kind of looked at the different years, because we've used it differently really every year since it's been open. When we opened it the first year, then we had COVID, and then Brooks was in there later, and so, but the average cost per year for water is $5,000 per year, meaning that's $416 a month. Electric, the average cost is $6,000 per year, or $500 a month. So the total of just water and electric, the gas was very, very small because we don't really use gas down there, is $916 a month just to cover the utility costs. Now that also includes, the bathrooms and the restrooms that are public restrooms there. It's all one building, so the concession building is on 1 meter for both gas, electric, and water. So I can't pull out just what it would be if those bathrooms were open and used. I mean, that's where a lot of the water consumption comes, because they are public restrooms. They're open most of the time from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the minimum. Sometimes we open them longer in the morning, depending upon who's been in the concession. But that's where, looking at the RFP, and I had put out in the RFP, and I have it in your packet, kind of basic criteria that we were looking for based on our previous discussion. So I wanted to verify that we are still on the same page, because there, a couple of the proposers, or one of the proposals for sure, is a little bit different than what's proposed, and that was also encouraged in here as well, as if you had something different, put it in our proposal. So we had what we asked, but based on that conversation and kind of looking at whether we were doing a year-round lease or a potential just summer lease, and that's where one of the proposals comes in, is it's just for the year, the months that it's occupied. And I do have confirmation from a different vendor that didn't put in a proposal because they couldn't afford the winter, because they didn't have anything planned for it. Now, one of our proposals does have year-round use, so then that's a year-round lease. So a little different, and we don't have apples to apples. They're very different. We kind of knew that. That's why we had the proposers come and do a presentation to you at the last meeting. I wanted to do a ranking of the RFPs, and I did get one back, but didn't get the other ones back, so I don't have like really any thoughts of where you are as a committee. But that's where I wanted to have that discussion. It's what we put in scope of services. We wanted to see what they were offering, and we had two very good, very unique proposals, very different. And then operated the concession stand a minimum of May through October and Thursday through Sunday. So I believe both proposals met that. Now there might be, depending on weather too, and if you open early or stay open late, all that depends on weather. The desired lease of 3 years, and I believe both had that in there, with some possible changes after the first year. And then the desired lease of $1,000 per month, May through October, and then operating, and then $750 per month. And this was based off the discussions we had last year with the concession stand and some of the concerns of it being in the winter and not being operational, but still having to heat it if there's equipment stored in there. So, and the $1,000 a month is what Bricks had been paying previously when they entered into lease, and they were paying it for 12 months, and they were only operating that May through October. So I guess based on these discussions, based on the fact that we have two very different proposals, and to give you a little bit more information, we thought this meeting was necessary to have this discussion on what do you see as a committee as being very important, and is there anything significant in this proposal that we may have missed or we want to change. And then with that, we had planned for February meeting to be the meeting that you choose a proposal, which we still can do. You also could choose one tonight if we go through it and you talk about that. Or the other option is if you do want to make any specific changes to this or clarifications of anything that we want to give back to the proposals, we could do that and let them reissue that, or you could reject the proposals at this point and then reissue the RFP with the corrections in. We put it out there for a couple weeks. They can put a proposal back in, and then we still could bring it forward in February. So that's kind of a summary.
Alder Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One little housekeeping item I noticed on the documents, dates. We make reference to a 3-year lease, but the dates involved really amount to 2 years and 5 months rather than 3 years. Ending in 2028 October, whereas a 3-year lease would have been ending June 1 of 2029. So we need to clarify that in our document. Also, this whole idea of what we're charging in the off season. If the business chosen does have an off season, one is proposing to do a delivery business during the off season, but we've already seen how onerous that was for previous tenant, and probably maybe reason that they have not stepped up again because it's just not sustainable. I think that we should look at that too before choosing and before reissuing anything. My feeling is it's just way too much money for something that's just sitting there, taking up space. We can certainly look for monies to help offset our ownership costs, but I don't think we can realistically look for monies to cover our ownership costs. If that be the case, then maybe we should put it up for sale. So My two thoughts going in.
Thank you, Alder Neal, and I echo those thoughts because, I'm not in the ice cream business. I don't know anything about it, but I really don't see when you offer just ice cream and stuff, the profit margin to support paying a 12-month lease down there, and why pay a 12-month lease? Why pay rent for 12 months out of the year when you're only using it for, say, 6? And like as Jamie said, the expenses that we have with that, it's not really sustainable. And Alder Watson.
So just to clarify the numbers, Jamie, that you quoted, so it's for the entire year, right? And then when during the off season, is the entire structure shut down, or do we still have the bathroom operational?
We don't have them open to the public, but we have it's down to 54 degrees we keep the building at, so the pipes don't freeze. We don't fully winterize it. But we haven't had it open to the public. We could, I think that was kind of the idea when it was built, that those bathrooms would be open year-round. But we haven't done that, well, because the first year was COVID and we've kept them closed. We haven't had a demand, because the playground's not open in the winter, we haven't had a demand for them in the winter, and with some of the vandalism problems that we had, we haven't opened them. So I guess short answer is yes, we do heat the building, but only at that 54 degrees right now. We could potentially fully winterize the building if we wanted to, and then not pay those costs over the winter.
I just was wondering if the water usage was continuing over the winter, which it's probably not. It's just the electricity, right?
Just electricity.
Okay, so that, so we could know how much water is, at least for the entire structure over the 9 months it's open or whatever. But then there's no way to divest the bathroom water usage with the restaurant, right?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. So I didn't send in my score sheet to Jamie, but I did score them. And I actually think that the RFP, the way it was written, was fine. I think it encourages some creativity in the approach, but I think it also talks about our intention with the use of the space. When I scored them, they came up almost the same in terms of actual percentage when I put point values to these questions. And our original vision for that was concession. And when I think of concession much the way we operate it at the pools, at Sylvan, where it's, limited snack options, drinks, ice cream, whatever that is, and so it's a limited menu of offerings, because what we're trying to keep, or at least what we were going for down there, was an active family vibe where someone could just run over and get a drink or get ice cream or whatever, and then they were, spending their time at River Life Park or whatever that was. But when I got to scoring these, looking at the plan that was presented by Los Venados, that essentially almost turns that little building into a restaurant, with some walk-away options and whatnot. But I like the idea of the morning coffee service, because in the summertime, there's a lot of people that walk down there that may like that morning coffee option. But then when I got a little further into it, there were some things that I think may even overwhelm the space, because it is a really small space. And so, if we start to look at live events and live music, and we start to add alcohol and things down there, then we're getting into the venue idea, and we're getting away from the concession idea. So I think we have to decide if we want this building to be a concession stand. This one plan that operates year-round maybe need to be pared back a little bit, because it's a little bit much for the size of the space we have. Also, if you were going to have a gathering down there, you're going to have an event space or have some live bands or whatever. You can't underestimate the popularity of that in Wausau, and the fact that may overwhelm the entire space. I mean, if folks start showing up with lawn chairs and whatnot, and it starts to look like an outdoor concert, that could actually really overwhelm that space and the area around it. So, whether or not we have the space for all of those offerings, I do like the idea of the fresh menu type items and that, but I also like the idea of the plan that we got from Alwyn's, from Sawmill, was conservative approach, and it was a phased expansion so that they could kind of walk before they run and kind of figure out what works and what doesn't down there before it's this full menu of offerings. And so if I had to pick one today, I think I'm on the fence about choosing one today. I probably would be, after I think about it a little bit, would probably be willing to do that or able to do that at our February meeting like we planned, but I don't know that we have to retool the RFP. If we are willing to absorb the utility costs for the winter, I think that's a decision that we can make separately. You know, I mean, we just have to decide what we really want to offer down there and how far we want to subsidize it. We've looked for a longer operating season. You know, we would like to see, we've talked about it before, where we would like to see something that runs in April when things start to really warm up, at least into the fall when, you know, when the snow starts to fly, so that, you know, we're not having such a long down period as well. So, you know, I guess I'm interested in everyone else's insight, but, you know, it's hard to land on. I like elements of both. But I do think that the one plan may be almost too aggressive of a plan for the small space that we have. That's not a large building, and the area around it isn't that big either. So, you know, I mean, I know they've both seen the building, but, you know, we just have to decide what it is we're going for.
And that was my concern too, is turning this into something it's not. You know, it's a concession stand, and so, I mean, I'd like to see it remain a concession stand. We have a business like that 200 yards away. You know, so I don't want to see people competing. I'd like to see both people. I'd like to see somebody in both buildings succeed, you know, and that being, I would lean towards more of the concession myself, because that's what it was built for. And I don't see anything wrong with the RFP, but if we decide not to charge rent over the winter, I would suggest that we open the back up for RFPs, because the person that was in there this last year would probably submit an RFP.
I think we also would have to identify a fund source, though, for where we will fund the deficit from if we create one in the operating costs. So, you know, if we are willing to fully subsidize the operating costs for the winter months when it's closed, we have to figure out where, the finance committee will absolutely ask us where we're going to get that money from. So that we got to figure out.
I agree, but you're gonna leave it sit empty all year round, all you Neil.
Well, yeah, my point is, if it's vacant all year round, we still have cost of ownership. It's not going to go away just because, you know, there's no business there during the warm months.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know where that money comes from, but it's obviously it has to be there, or else the building couldn't be there. So there is, the city is absorbing that one way or another. What we're looking for is a tenant to help, you know, cut back on those operating costs that we own. So, I mean, I don't know, that's really not in my, you know, brain, you know, when I'm thinking about all this. I'm not terribly concerned about being overly successful and that being a problem. You know, success is good, I suppose. I imagine both of these people that have submitted proposals would love to have an overflow of customers, regardless of what they're selling, whether it's, you know, pastries or ice cream cones, doesn't matter. They would love to see, you know, immense success from their customership. So I don't think we can sit and predict that either and make that part of our decision process. So, yeah, I'm not happy with the RFP the way it stands. I think we have to clarify a few things. I think that, you know, we can do that two ways. We can reissue it with some edits, or we can discuss it, you know, between staff and the proposers to iron out some things and then bring that back to us as to what they brought up, you know, in their discussions. You know, things like the off-season rent, if you will. Things like, you know, is it 3 years or is it 2 years and 5 months? You know, these are just items that need to be addressed clarified before we make a decision. I think even before the proposers say, yes, I absolutely am sure I want to do this. They might have some questions of their own. I would welcome, Mr. Chair, either or both of the proposers an opportunity to come up to the dais and voice to us any of their concerns. We've heard their pitch.
Sure.
But is there anything here that we're talking about that they're thinking about, and how might they like to see this flesh out? So I'll just lay that out there.
Would you folks like to come up and address the committee?
First, it's Dylan Alwyn, 201-811 Dubay Drive in Mosinee, 54455. So again, thank you for having a special meeting here tonight, coming out in the cold. And, I think I communicated with Jamie coming off of our presentation, a couple weeks back already. And we did change a couple items. One was, we originally had a small ask from the city for, some type of loan structure. We did secure the funding and do have the funding to fully build out that space. So signage, equipment, all startup costs will be completely covered. So I think that was a change from our original proposal. We also did increase our overall rents to include more of a 12-month structure. So there will be a lease per month. I think what we did was about $100 more per month straight through. It's original proposal for the 6 months, and then $100 in addition. So I think the only concern that I would have, and certainly we'd want the city to be, comfortable with moving forward. I think the one thing that would be difficult for us is if it's another month out. It really gets hard for us to kind of mobilize in only 2 months to get it fully operational. If the decision was made by February 1st, it'd still only give us 90 days to opening, which is still in itself a pretty tight timeline. So I think that would probably be our only concern is the timeline at this point, if it would be reopened.
And that is why we're having this meeting.
Right on.
Anything else?
Nope, any other questions for us?
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would you like to come up, Mr.?
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you all. Well, I'm thinking about the rent and the project that I presented. In my view, since the moment the building was built, I think it was built with a goal to make it successful and profitable. I don't think it has to be something that the owner or the city needs to pay. That's why I created a proposal based on volume, different items to make it successful. Work all long hours from the morning until the evening, 6 days a week, at least 7 days a week during the summer, and try to work during the winter. So the concept could work and bring people in there. I don't think that we just selling ice cream, the place can be profitable. Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion from the committee? Do you think we should discuss not the rents for the winter, or not charging rent for the winter, or leave it as is? I guess I would like to see this profitable, and that's why I called the meeting. Mr. Neal, Alder Neal.
Thank you again. Well, that's just it. I mean, it's a bottom line discussion for the city and also for the proposers. Without profitability or sustainability, it's like really a moot question.
It'll sit empty.
I think something needs to be done. I would like to see staff and the proposers get together, put together sort of a response to this RFP for us, showing what was discussed, what might have been changed, what can the city absorb. Let's do that for us for our next regular meeting. and look at making a decision at that point. I'm certainly not ready to make a decision tonight.
No.
There's too many loose ends here, and I don't like the wording that I'm seeing in places, so that's where I'm at.
Jamie, you turned on your mic?
Yeah, if I may, I need direction from you as the committee. We put out the RFP. This is what it says in there based on our last RFPs. They presented a proposal of what they feel they want to pay. So that's what's being presented to you. If you want something different as a committee, I need that direction, and then I can certainly ask them to update their proposal and give it back to me. But I'm here to get direction from you as a committee as to what you're looking for, and what you want to see. Now, the budget, I have to go back and see what we did for revenue, but the expenditures for all the utilities are included in a 400 block budget within the city budget. So they have been budgeted for. I was trying to find the revenue that we did on the revenue line for the 400 block, because the 400 block and River Life are included into one budget in your budget book. I just don't, I don't have my teams on here like I would. We have our working budget document on that on my, oh, actually I can probably bring it up on this computer, where it would show what we budgeted as far as revenue for that facility, because that might offset those utilities, but the utilities I know are included in the budget. So, I mean, I'm willing to work with both proposals and have them provide you any updates, but they need direction, and I need direction specific to what you want to see, if there's anything here you want changed, because this is what we put out to them to respond to, and that's what they've responded to.
Alder Rasmussen?
Thank you. I think that, given the fact that the utilities are budgeted for 2026, I guess my concern on the money end is when I see how grueling the finance and council discussions about the budget were, and they were to the point where they were haggling about flower baskets to meet that budget. My concern was that if we make a decision that essentially waves off the rent during the off-season and absorbs those operating costs, we have to be able to know that those are funded. So if the revenue from the rental of the stand is how they're paying the operating costs, that matters. If they're just budgeting for it as an operating expense and then offsetting some of it with the lease revenue, that's another discussion, because that means they have the money. They're just getting it back either totally or in part. And so, not knowing how that was funded, that's where I was coming from on if we're going to waive off rent in the winter, we are going to have to know how that all gets paid for. I mean, I don't want to create a hole in the budget on January 19th. We just started. So, I mean, I do think that we'll be prepared to pick, based on the two proposals. I mean, the two proposals are accurate with what we asked for, and they're dramatically different. And I think that's where we struggle, because they're so different. But that's also an okay problem to have. I think we just need to think about what we want that space to be. And then, I guess, come ready with a decision for the February meeting. I'm fine with either approach. If the committee decides that it wants to reduce rent during the winter months, both of these proposals seem to have in their business plan the expectation that they will be able to and willing to pay rent in the winter. I really think we should let it stand. I mean, we have two quality proposals that are planning to pay rent in the winter. And I mean, I really feel like we need to select between one of those, because they were presented in earnest and they're very different offerings, but they also, each one has a little bit of a different vibe too. So I don't know what we would expect Jamie to get with the proposers to summarize. I mean, all you have is what they've given you. I mean, they came with two different ideas, and we know what those two different ideas are. So
if I could clarify, so Dylan, with yours, because your original proposal did not have rent in the winter, is the one where you're adding $100 per month, is that just to the months you're open that you'd add $100 a month to offset those winter costs and then still not pay during those winter months? Is that, just to clarify?
Just $100 across the board.
Come up to the mic, please.
Yep, our proposal would be the $100 added per month for the 12 months. And that also include keeping the insurance in place for the full 12 months as well.
Because your original proposal wasn't 12 months, was it paying 12 months?
It was not, it was for the 6 months.
Okay, so then you'd pay $100 a month for the other 6 months.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
The other 6 plus another $100 on the, so it's $100 added to our original proposal plus the 100 in the 6 months that it would be closed.
Say that again?
So we're proposing $100 in addition to what was proposed on the months that are open.
Yep.
Plus the $100,
In those months you're closed.
correct.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Okay, committee. Alder Neal.
Am I hearing that, I'm sorry, that in the months that it would be closed, the rent that you're proposing is $800 per month?
Correct,
Okay, on top of the zero originally?
yes.
Okay.
You're proposing $800 a month to pay for the winter months?
No, he's
No.
proposing $100 a
Oh,
month,
$100 a month. Okay,
period. Yeah.
okay.
If I may,
Sure. Alder Neal.
you know, what we want ultimately is a long-term partner at this
Exactly.
place, so we don't have to do this every year. I almost used an adjective before that. That's what we want, a long-term working relationship that's sustainable, that helps us with our operating costs for owning that building and makes it a tantalizing opportunity for the tenant. We've seen what has happened, you know, when things didn't really work out, you know. We also know about the vagaries of the weather in Wausau. The summer season can be glorious and it can be challenging. You know, and that directly, you know, speaks to profitability. You know, May, you never know what's going to happen in May. October, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, there's a sweet spot for sure, but even then, you're going to have good days and have bad days. That all being said, I just don't like saying, sure, let's go with this or that, and knowing in my heart that a year from now, I'm going to be having the same discussion because we're making it inherently risky for the tenant, and I don't think we should do that. If I have to make a motion, then I'm going to make a motion that we change the off-season, if you want to call it that, rental rates significantly, open for discussion as to what level that might be, but I'm talking hundreds of dollars less than what is on there right now. We have to give the tenant a little bit of wiggle room and breathing room to deal with the vagaries of the business, traffic flow down there, weather, that sort of thing. So I don't think that the $100 a month is attractive as, you know, all that you would be responsible for. I don't think $750 is anywhere near fair. You know, it's our building. We put it there, you know, and we want it to be used for the people. Coming with that is going to be some cost to the city. Otherwise, shutter it, sell it, whatever. But let's be real. I mean, it's a business proposition, and we need to, you know, work with the business community in such a way that they have a clear vision of a profitable future that they can make, you know, of their own accord, without, you know, this albatross around their neck when they're not even open for business. So a number, I don't know, $250 a month during the off season, $1,000 a month during the season.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'm sorry?
You made a motion to that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I clarify, like, what's the motion for modifying the RFP? having, yeah, what is the, oh, so requiring the lease agreement to be 1,000 or 250, regardless of what the proposals were? 'Cause-
To make all things equal.
okay. Seconding it though.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I think under the circumstances, trying to redefine this on the floor now that we have two proposals in front of us really moves the goalposts for the people who proposed. So, with that, I mean, do we relet the RFP? There's probably not time for that, right? I mean, they have to staff up and stock up, right? So,
Yeah, if we knew what the changes were, I could have it out tomorrow, and looking at the schedule, we would have it out, probably 2 weeks at the minimum, is what we've done before. The RFP, if we were to reissue the RFP.
I'm just trying to find a fair way to do it, because if we're going to change the criteria, they created their proposals based on the criteria that we offered. So now that they've proposed, when we go back and pull the rug out and change that criteria, it doesn't feel fair to me. Like, I feel like we have to give them the opportunity to modify their proposals.
Yes.
And if there's any other proposer that didn't get the same chance, because now it's all different, like, I feel like we need to reoffer it.
Yeah, so if we did issue it tomorrow, let's say if we knew today exactly what we wanted to change in it and reissued it tomorrow, we could have it go through essentially February 1st or 2nd, being tomorrow's Tuesday already. We'll give them a full 2 weeks. We could postpone or change our February 2nd meeting even to the 3rd or 4th, just by a day or two, so that you don't change the timing too much. We were still going to bring it back on the 2nd. In order to keep it close to that time frame, or you could push your meeting back 1 week and just meet 1 week later, and it's only 1 week difference. So if that's the case, I mean, the RFP can be put out immediately if I know what we're changing. And we could work with that timeline to keep it a minimal change to what we currently have today.
Jamie, is the figures that Alder Neal made in his motion, is that more or less than the two proposals? Because
Yep.
I'm with Alder Neal. I want to see somebody succeed here. I don't want to come back every year and do this. I'm very pro small business, and Alder Neal.
Well, in terms of scoring, I did not score because I looked at these as way two different things. And on the face of it, the ice cream concession proposal does not meet the requirements of our RFP. It doesn't even come close in that off season, not even close. So why would we give that, due consideration over the other proposer who seems a lot closer to what our RFP asked for? Now, there's other things we need to discuss as a committee about the two businesses themselves, but I'm talking about the responses to the RFP. I think the RFP, it's partially my fault because I, voted to release it. I'm sure it does not encourage responses. To your point, Mr. Chair, earlier, we have somebody saying $100 a month for the so-called off-season, the shuttered season. That's $650 less than the RFP asked for. How is that rating a good score? I don't get that. That's a really key part of what we're asking here. I think what we're asking is too much. So I haven't seen a second yet, but I'm thinking $250 a month during those supposedly closed months is possibly attractive to these proposers and maybe more. So I wish we had done this earlier, but I don't want to feel like we're stuck with it right now. But we can certainly reissue the RFP, changing those numbers, do it as a very fast turnaround RFP, and give the business community a second, chance at the plate to look at it. I don't think it hasn't turned out how I think we wanted it to, and it's not something that I even want to vote on.
Thank you, Alder Neal. Alder Watson.
I guess I see the RFP as being fairly clear. Like number 4, it's a desired lease amount. So I think it sort of opened up people to give what
Can
they
you
are
talk in the mic
capable-
more?
what they're capable of. So I mean, the desired lease amount 1,750, but I'm not sure I feel comfortable putting arbitrary numbers on without a better handle on what the expenses are. Because right now, like looking at the budget, I think I looked at the budget and it allocated $126,000 in expenses for the 400 block River Life area, and then the revenues were like 76,004. That's what it says in the budget document. So it's clear we're never really covering the expenses anyway. But then if our RFPs come back with such different amounts than what we're asking for, maybe that's the problem too. Maybe we aren't really understanding what they can actually make and put into their budget. And by reissuing it with those 1,000 and 250, I don't know if we would get any other responses anyway. I don't know. Maybe we need a better handle on like what actually is this costing us. Do we want to subsidize this, or do we just want to unload it? Because maybe we don't want to like have to mess around with this annually. But obviously 1,000 and 750 is, or even 250, I don't think is a possibility to make this go. So I don't know.
Alder Neal. Oh, go ahead.
If the budget for the 400 block 2, I think I have to verify with Marianne, but I do believe much of that funding comes from, to offset the revenues versus expenditures, comes from room tax.
It does.
Yes.
Alder Neal.
Okay. I think we need to recall what the name and mission of this committee is. We are the Parks and Recreation Committee. We're not the Economic Development Committee. We're not the Finance Committee. We're Parks and Rec. We're not. Our job is not to coordinate, revenue centers that pay for themselves and all this. Parks and recreation are just that. They're there for the people to enjoy. The pavilion was built with a vision of just having an amenity, not something so we can, have an expensive place and then we can cover the costs by renting it out. That's not what parks do. We don't make money on anything that parks does. In the long run, we're always in the red. Even on a great year at Sylvan Hill, I'm sure we don't make profit out of it, I'll bet, because the operating costs are considerable. We got staff, we're making snow, we have maintenance throughout that, and we've had years when we did that with really bad weather. So our mission really is not to sit here and try to hammer out profit or covering expenses, et cetera, et cetera. The city made a decision to have that there. Maybe we regret it now. I don't know, but there it is. It's ours. And we need to find a way to provide the amenity to the people visiting that area, that park. And part of that is that we need to subsidize it because that's what we do with parks. Nobody pays to use the skate park, but we spend a lot of money on it.
Correct. So, Alder Watson.
So, I guess we got back what we wanted, though. Then we have 2 RFPs that maybe didn't hit the mark on our, rent totals, but they're trying to give us a mission and vision of what we want in that thing. So, outside of like thinking what the rent is, we could just evaluate these 2 proposals based on that, because they gave us what we wanted, right? We got what they are able to do for each of the years that they want to be a partner with us. But I don't think resubmitting the RFP out to the public with these 2 changes, I mean, that sort of, I don't think it would bring anybody else in unless there's like, unless we would leave that out altogether. Because, I mean, we aren't really trying to profit on this, right? I liked what Jamie did in our Parks Commission meeting. I didn't like it initially. I don't know if you saw my face initially, but I didn't like it initially. But I liked it sort of, and I think we as a Parks Committee probably should do this as well, is on a spectrum, how much do we want to subsidize the activities we do in this town? And so maybe this is one of those that is on the heavily subsidized side because we find it valuable to our citizens. And so that checking the $1,000 rent box and the $750 rent box isn't so important. So, I mean, our RFPs right now, I mean, our proposals right now have that information in it. So I don't really see the need of reissuing it, in my opinion. Thanks.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. You know, there was a time when we talk about, I guess, subsidizing this thing. We know that the utilities on an annual basis are approximately 11,000. I mean, we're talking about essentially 11,000 in what amounts to be a $100 million city budget. So this is not a significant cost driver, but my thought is just knowing how the struggles went with the budget, that we all have sat through that. And, you know, yes, we are Park and Rec, and we generally manage quality of life amenities that don't all turn a profit. But it also has to be lodged in the back of our mind that we also don't exist to create struggles and problems for our other standing committees. And that's why I was asking about the revenue part of this. But if we are looking to subsidize this somewhat heavily, there was a time where we talked about not even outsourcing the operation of this, but staffing it, creating the offerings, and running it as a city facility. And not to say that, you know, that's a responsibility that Jamie and her department want, but if we can't come to terms with the private sector for how to do this, then they're going to have to in-house it. And that's what they're doing at Sylvan and the pools, and it works. But it's not easy. So we have two proposals here that would still keep that function with the private sector. And I guess if our feeling is that we're not going to get a bunch of extra proposals by reletting it, and, you know, we've had this discussion before the two proposers that are here, if we want to continue to consider these and make a decision on these next week or in 2 weeks, maybe that's the way we're going to have to go. You know, I don't think, I don't know that we're going to get much further by massaging the criteria, I guess. I mean, if we're going to end up with the same two proposers anyway, then what we can do is pick one of the proposers, and we're going to have to negotiate an operating contract with that person. That's where the pricing discussion can happen, right? I mean, we don't have to necessarily even set that rent rate today. We know what our desired rent rate was, which is what Sarah was saying. There's going to have to be a contract for services that gets negotiated with whomever you pick. So have the money discussion at that point then, right?
And
Does
that
that
would
save
not
us
be
all
our,
time?
that would not be our committee anyway.
Not really,
No.
no.
Okay, I can do that.
I mean, does
yeah.
that get us, I mean, score what we have, make a decision, and then when it comes time to hammer out that contract with whomever we've chosen, that really is where I think you have your money conversation, right? Does that make any of this easier?
I can agree with that. I can agree with a lot of what's been said. And I just want to see somebody succeed down there. And if we can take these two proposals and pick one at our next meeting, I'm fine with that. And if you said, Alder Rasmussen, let the finances go to where the committees it goes to. Right now, we have a motion on the floor from Alder Neal, and do I have a second on that motion? Going once. No second on the motion from Alder Neal. What's that? Yeah, I know I can, but I'm not going to. I think after listening to everybody, I think that we should just, like you said, we're the Parks Department, and let the money figures out where, would it be the Finance Committee or something, but because we're the Parks Department, we're not here to discuss finances. Yes, Mr. Neal.
So At such time, like at our next meeting, if we do vote to pick one of these, am I hearing then that that would institute a process of negotiation, further vetting, hammering out, an agreement by what, the Finance Committee, the ED Committee, both?
Well, it's a lease, so I would imagine it probably goes to finance, right?
And
It's a tenant lease.
Yeah, typically that would go to finance. And to answer Alder Neal's question, at the end of the RFP, under additional terms and conditions, it says upon the selection of a finalist, the city shall attempt to negotiate and reach a final agreement with the finalist. So that's where we could address the proper term, duration of the lease, which I agree with you needs to be changed, and final payment, and then that would be up to finance or whatever committee you send the approval of the lease to approve those terms. If the city's unable to reach a final agreement with the person selected, the city reserves the right to reject them and negotiate final agreement with another finalist who has the next most viable proposal. So I think these things, if the proposals aren't rejected and a new RFP isn't issued, I think this RFP is adequate and does allow for us to negotiate with a selected proposer, at least the terms. Do you agree with me, Jamie?
Yeah, I guess it's just hard to negotiate as staff with the proposer if you don't know what is expected. So we have in the RFP, we had the amounts that were in the old RFPs, and they've been adjusted last year based on, when Bricks left. And so that's what we used when we negotiated the contract last summer. And then it was changed because we had a change in vendor. So if it's something different than what's in the lease, I guess how are we negotiating that with a proposer?
Well, yeah, what's your leeway? In other words, you had desired lease amounts in the RFP. Yeah.
I mean, they provided a proposal, and so just to be clear, it is in your packet. The proposals are in the packet. So Mr. Alwyn's original poster or proposal that's in the packet had $600 per month, May, September, and October, $900 per month, June through August, and then with, I do have it printed out with what he brought up tonight that I can give you each in the email, which is the additional $100 per month throughout the year. So it ended up to be $700 per month, May, September, and October, $1,000 per month, June through August, and $100 per month, November through April is what he's proposing. And then Mr. Carubius is, sorry if I said that wrong again. His proposal was $750 for the first year. His changed by year, but for the first year of the lease was $750 May through October, and $500 November through April is what was in the proposal. And then on year two, I believe it went up to $1,000 per month and something else. But it's all in your packet in their proposals. So that is what at the moment, that's what I believe we would be starting with whoever you decide to choose. We'd be starting with that as far as a lease proposal. That's what would go to finance, and then I guess at finance, if I'm talking through this out loud of how I see it might go, we would present to finance the, cost to the city. I would make sure that I verify with the finance director exactly how much we budget for the revenue and the expenditures. And she has the detailed budget. I cannot see it because it's locked in our adaptive software, so I can't get to the details of that one. If you ask me of our general fund, I have all the details, but I don't the 400 block. So I can verify that would go. And then I guess it would be up to the finance committee to determine if that's adequate. And then that the additional revenue that was budgeted for that would not be recognized by the lease, by the amounts paid in the proposal, would be from room tax or absorbed within that budget. I guess that's how I'm thinking this would be walked through, or they would then direct me to go back and negotiate a different amount if they don't like that. Is that how it would work?
I feel like the easier way for us to get to a decision is for us to consider both proposals as they were presented with the revenue numbers that they all offered. And, you know, if there is, and I would believe you would commence your negotiations based on that framework as well. And, you know, if we, through negotiation, want to adjust those, or there's a request to adjust those numbers up or down, that then could be projected out to determine whether or not it supports where we need to be on cost. And then a recommendation could be made, a staff recommendation could be made to finance, to accept the lease, accept or modify the lease. But if we are just going to look at choosing a concept, we should choose that concept using the numbers that they gave us. I mean, that really is all we've been asked to do here, is choose a vendor. You know, and I mean, we either like the concept of each or one or the other. I mean, that's what the decision that we'll need to make. And then the contract part of it, I think the basis for any of the contract negotiations to start with their numbers that were offered. I mean, those are the numbers that we now have. They're publicly out, so I'd begin there.
Okay. And then if there's any issues in between the contract, say a year and a half down the contract, I guess then, rather than just up and leaving and saying, I can't make it, you know, come to us.
Well, that's what I wish the last vendor had done. Before it was on fire and they decided to take down the sign and leave, if we'd have had a similar conversation about what that operation took and how that was going, I think that we could have made different choices and that we could have maybe shown some flexibility. But that conversation never happened, at least with us.
Right, it did, with the one that was in last summer, I did have contact with them about the RFP, even when I didn't get a proposal from them, and asked why they didn't propose, and she got back to me saying they didn't propose because they couldn't afford to make any payments over the winter when they weren't having an operation.
Sure.
But I did point out to her that the RFP said to, in that one number, where it said if it's different, the criteria to be scored on, right here is to provide the lease amount if different than this when operating, and that's what I explained to her. So she could have potentially done the same thing that Mr. Elwin did, because it is different than what was in the lease. Well, even both proposals are different
They
than what
both
in
are.
the lease. So,
Right.
but that's what I got from her back in an email, saying that they didn't submit it because they didn't want to put something in there that they knew they couldn't afford any over the winter.
I see. Okay. Then it just seems like their offered numbers seems like a fair spot to start.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we had this meeting because this needed to be discussed, you know, and to both you folks out there, I wish you the best of luck, and whomever we choose, should you ever run into any problems financially or whatever, just don't throw in the towel. Come to us and talk to us, or not necessarily the parks, but the finance or all of us. So, is there any other discussion for tonight? Okay, Jamie, go ahead.
If I could just clarify, so we're moving forward, so on February 2nd, we'll have this back on the agenda. I'll put the same things that were in the packet tonight, in the agenda packet, and the ask of the committee will be to choose a vendor from the proposals that we have, or not choose. I mean, you have the right to do either one, and then from there, you'll make a recommendation based on their proposals for the lease agreement to go to the Finance Committee. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can I just request that everybody do that evaluation so that you can put together a comprehensive, like, this is how the committee scored stuff? It would just be nice to have the data to back up our decision.
Motion to adjourn? Motion by Alder Neal, second by Alder Watson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight and braving the cold.